A video of a young boy reported to be a student of the Africa Church Grammar School in Lagos State, covered in bruises, is now making the rounds on social media. According to reports, a teacher allegedly brutalized the young boy for keeping his bushy hair against the school rules. This video has caused outrage as many Nigerians are demanding justice for the student and for the teacher to be fired. Well, for more Children's Day celebration in Nigeria today, we are now joined by Taiwo Akinlami, who is a lawyer and UNICEF child rights advocate. Mr. Akinlami, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
Great. Let me just begin by asking you your thoughts on that viral video we've seen disturbing the young boy's body with bruises just because he kept bushy hair. What are your thoughts on the corporal punishment?
My thoughts on... So what are my thoughts on...
On the corporal punishment in Nigeria? We see this too often where schools and teachers still have to use the cane on children.
Yes, I think it's a reflection of our warped understanding of what child discipline is. The word discipline comes from the Latin word disciplinare, which is to teach, not to beat, to teach. And how do you teach a child? You teach a child by example. Abraham Lincoln says, how do you train a child the way you should go? He said, you will go there first and come back and take the child with you, which means you have no right to direct a child in the direction which you have not gone. But unfortunately, we equate discipline with punishment. And until we begin to change that orientation and our disposition to dignity of human person changes, recognizing that a child is a person. And if a child is a person has three fundamental characteristics. A person has what? A person has sense, has a sense of judgment, can think. Number three, a person has the power of choice. Until we begin to recognize that, we are not going to go too far. We're going to continue to see this kind of cases. Then secondly, if this happens within a school system, the first question to ask is, what kind of training were given to the teachers? Does the school have a child protection system codified into a policy on which matters that has to do with children have been properly identified, and what constitutes abuse has been properly identified, and what to do to avoid abuse has been properly identified and codified? And so there is a system and there's a policy. What is a policy? A statement of will predicated on dominant positive value system of the people who drafted it to make sure it works. Once we don't have that in place, we continue to see this kind of situation, and our situation will continue to be, our action will continue to be responsive in terms of reactionary instead of being preventive, forgetting that in matter that has to do with children, enlightenment is superior to enforcement.
Okay, and enlightenment is a good place to continue the conversation because, as we know, today being Children's Day, we're meant to be raising awareness about the issues that concern the child and how society can enable the child fulfill their potential. So if you were to draw up a quick list, Taiwo, what would be on your list of pertinent issues that we need to be raising awareness of concerning the Nigerian child in particular?
The totality of the Nigerian child. The fact that 13.5 million Nigerian children are out of school in the code. The fact that those who are in school are not learning the basics. According to research done by UNICEF, Nigeria is 60 years behind schedule in terms of children learning the basics in school. Basics are what will make them relevant within the workplace in the 21st century. Nigeria, in the sub-Saharan Africa, we are 60 years behind schedule. That's 2 generations. And I'm being generous by saying 60 years because that's what the English dictionary says to mean as the meaning of generation. The fact that Nigeria has overtaken India in the number of under 5 deaths. Nigeria is supposed to be 180 million people, but India is supposed to be 1.3 billion, but we have overtaken India in the number of under 5 deaths in the world today. The fact that our people live in abject poverty, the rights of children is the rights of their parents. The fact that close to 90 million Nigerians are living on less than $1.99 per day, according to Global Poverty Watch. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, 25% of Nigeria, on top of that ultra poverty, are said to be vulnerable. No access to water, no access to food, no access to shelter, and all of this. The issues are very, very many. and we cannot actually, as a matter of fact, exhaust them today. Now, Mandela made a fundamental statement in calling our attention what we should be raising awareness about. He said there's no keener revelation of the soul of a nation than how they treat their children. So when you want to know the state of the soul of a nation, look at the way we treat our children. There's no social investment. So because there's no social investment towards our children, therefore there's no social protection. We are a nation, we are a beggarly nation that has committed the affairs of our children to donor agencies. We are looking onto UNICEF, looking onto British Council, looking onto Ford Foundation. Now the question to ask is this: in the developed country, who do they commit their children to? Who does America commit their children to? Who do UK, Finland, all of these, who do they commit their children to? They take responsibility for their children. But unfortunately here, we're always going cap in hand, looking for one organization or the other to help us. As if there's anybody who can raise our children the way we can raise them. It's very sad.
Indeed, you paint quite the gloomy picture, and I think that for a lot of us in Nigeria, we cannot claim to be ignorant about these issues. And I'm glad you brought up social protection. 2020 report by UNICEF says 2 out of 3 children worldwide are not covered by any form of social protection. In Nigeria, what should we be doing differently, Mr. Akinlami?
What we should be doing differently is the fact that we have to bring matters that has to do with our children on the front burner first of discussion. Number 2, we have to ask the critical question: what is the state of our children? What is the state of our affairs? What statistics are we working with that tells us the state of our children? Because for us to solve a problem, we must know the extent of the problem. For example, if there are 13.5 million Nigerian children out of school, the question again is that where are they located? What is the geographical spread of this 13.5 million? What kind of education do they need? Is it that they have never been in school, or they dropped out of school? Now, if they dropped out of school, does that mean that there's no orientation on the side of the parents to send them to school? If it is that there's orientation on the part of the parents to send them to school, but there's no school to go, how many classrooms do we need to build? How many teachers do we need to train? If we cannot build classroom anymore, can we begin to use technology to reach out to our children, to get them educated, doing an hybrid of homeschooling and using technology, homeschooling and using the formal education? What exactly can we do? So we need to identify the extent of the problem and begin to profile solution. I don't believe everybody can be in the 4 walls of school. COVID-19 has taught us another lesson. The fact that children were at home and they were learning. But it is important to know that at that time that children were alone at home that they were learning, 40 million Nigerian children could not access education because of lack of access to technology, access to the internet, and access to tools that are necessary to do that. So I think what we need to begin to do is to first identify the problem. When you go to a doctor cannot help you until he is able to identify the problem, does the proper diagnosis, and begin to apply medication. So I think that's where we need to start from. We have never, the Nigerian government has never sponsored a research which is focused on understanding the state of our children. We keep going cap in hand to donor agencies to do that for us. And I think we need to sit down and ask the question: what is wrong with us? What is the state of our children? What do we need to do?
Okay. We're going to continue the discussion, but we're aware that President Muhammadu Buhari is currently with some children marking the Children's Day, and he appears to be engaging them and perhaps encouraging them with certain words to lift their spirits. We can see a child there who seems to be either performing, but definitely very in good spirits, and there they are cutting the Nigerian cake on Children's Day. So that at least is a sight to encourage us that the Nigerian children are full of life and ready to celebrate.
Indeed, it comes in the midst of a pandemic, and of course, for a second year running, we've had to have events on a low scale, but it's good to see the president receiving children there in the nation's capital, of course, in the villa there. But Mr. Akinlami,
yes, I would like to take you up on the topic, a point you raised. You said we need to prefer solutions. So even as we look at these children celebrating Children's Day, let's look ahead. A couple of things I want to bring to your attention just to get your feedback on that. One is the Child Rights Act. We know was passed in 2003 and is yet to be domesticated in 36 states. And we wonder, 11 out of the 36 states are yet to domesticate the Child Rights Act. What would be the impact of not having domesticated that act? And then the other aspect is the ASP, which is the Alternative School Program, which again was initiated by this administration. And a lot of, some people have lauded it as the way forward. Could you tell us more about that program as well?
Okay, well, a quick comment on the president meeting with children. I think that the president is just using the children to make political statements. I don't think the president really cares about children. If he does care, we won't be having the situation we're having today concerning our children. So I don't buy that political gimmick. We do it every year. That national cake that they are calling cutting. Even the crumb of the national cake does not get to the Nigerian child. So that's by the way. Comment, by the way, is a symposium discussion. I can't get into it. So now, when we talk about the issue of Child Rights Act, it is important. The reason why the Child Rights Act has not been promulgated in 11 states of the Federation is because that Child Rights Act in itself did not emanate from Nigeria. You see, because you see, in 1989, the Convention on the Rights of the Child was passed, which is the most ratified human rights treaty in the world. Now, Nigeria was supposed to promulgate that convention. It was not enough for them to sign it. They needed to promulgate it into a local law in Nigeria so that it can become enforceable according to Section 12 of the Nigerian Constitution, 1999 Constitution. So now Nigeria did not do that. UNICEF began to lead a particular advocacy, and that advocacy was what resulted in the promulgation of the Child Rights Act. It is important to note, historically speaking, that the first time the bill was presented before the National Assembly, it was thrown away. UNICEF had to mobilize people, mobilize children to get it passed. So when a nation does not pass a law as a result of political will, they were persuaded. The pressure was on them to persuade it. How do you think they are going to implement it? Now, 36 states of the Federation, 25 has passed. What the 25 passed? Where is the structure to make it work? Then when you go to the states that have not passed, one of the major issues we are dealing with in the states that have not passed is the issue of child marriage. The idea that when we say that a child is now anybody below 18, and that same law criminalizes child marriage, is going to become a major issue. So people say that child marriage is a cultural issue. They say it's a religious issue. I say it's not a religious issue. It's not a cultural issue. It's a class issue. If it is a religious issue, there are Muslims in the north who are senators. There are Muslims in the north who are stinkingly rich. We see that they send their children to Ivy League schools. They send their children to see the end of their education. You have never seen any of them giving out their children at the age of 13, at the age of 14. But when it comes to the children of the poor, house of wood and dross of water, the oipoloi, what do? We say Islam says. We say culture says. Why? How come Islam does not say when it comes to the highly placed people? So it's politics. Until we stop playing politics with matters that has to do with our children, until we recognize that what we are dealing with is a major crisis, because we do not inherit the word from our forefather. We borrow it from our children. So say an Indian American proverb. So if we borrow the word from our children, at what level now are we going to return it? Let's say Nigeria is a car that you borrow from a friend. At what state are you going to return it to the friend the way it is right now? And I think it's very, very sad.
Indeed. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Taiwo Akinlami there, UNICEF Child Rights Advocate, for being on the show today.